Hey everybody, I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Shontell Smith, partner at Tusk Strategies. Shontell, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you for having me.
Republicans won in two special congressional elections in Florida over the week, but there is a silver lining here for Democrats. The Republican candidates won by much slimmer margins than the Republican incumbents did back in November. So what do you make of the news?
I don't make anything of the news yet. I think it's too early to make anything of the news. Yes, Republicans performed not as well as Trump did in November, but we're in I guess, April now. And, though the administration has made some drastic moves in terms of their policy, I don't think yet we know how the American public as a whole feels. Yes, Democrats were enthusiastic. Yes, Democrats raised more money in Florida. But we had the same momentum in November, and how did it turn out for Democrats? So I think it's way too soon to put anything into these results.
And that's a really interesting point because I talked to a GOP strategist and he said, hey, we were sweating until the results came in on Tuesday, but it's still a win. It's still a very comfortable win. And those districts are still reliably red. And then I talked to the chair of the Florida Democratic Party, and she said that this was a historic overperformance. It's showing Democrats tossing away President Trump's agenda. You're shaking your head. So you're thinking, I think that's a little overblown.
Yeah, I think this is just like, party wishful thinking. Yes, I think Democrats right now as a whole, we've discussed this, they need to feel good about something. So maybe this is the rallying cry, like, hey, I know it seems weary and bleak, but look, we are making strides. We did win in Wisconsin. So, yes, we're on the up and up. But I still think it's way too early. We need to see the impacts of some of these policies, like really see the impacts on the economy, immigration. We just need to see more, I think, as the American public. There's been some polling, but not overwhelming polling that shows that Trump's in trouble and that the American people are just, done with him. He's still a very powerful president. And as there's a famous saying, like, a win is a win. So you know what? They still have the majority in the House. It's a slim majority. I think the president has made the decision to pull Elise Stefanik's appointment. But at the end of the day, they're still in power.
Yeah, and to your point, a win is a win, and millions of dollars were poured into both of these races. There was an op-ed in Bloomberg that came out entitled this, Democrats Wasted Donors' Money in Florida. This came out on Wednesday, and it said this, instead of lavishing huge sums on special elections, they have no chance of winning. Democrats need to invest for the long term in the Sunshine State. And a Democratic strategist was quoted in this column calling the millions Democrats spent on these races donor abuse and an unethical use of resources. What's your thoughts on spending all of this money in races that, yes, did they close that gap? Yes, but is there still a big gap? Also, yes.
I think it's not the route I would have won. Florida has always been, I can't remember, since Bush. Florida has been a Republican. Back in the day, it used to be, maybe a swing state. It has been fully red. So I think they said in one of the races it was $12 million raised for the Democrat nominee, and I think $12 million for the Democratic nominee and $1 million for the Republican. $12 million on what? You lost by 4. I don't see that as a win. I think people are going to have fatigue of the Democrats consistently asking for money and losing in races that they shouldn't be performing in anyways. Focus on swing states that basically can be winnable. Florida is not a winnable state. So I think it's this abuse. And I think people are going to get sick and tired of giving money, especially in this economy. We just have the tariffs. Everything's about to get real expensive. People are going to be more judicious in how they give donations. I know I'm being more judicious, and that's going to have long-term implications on the Democrats. So they should be mindful of the money that they are spending.
With that in mind, I mean, when you're talking about these tariffs, everyone's saying, every economist is saying Americans will have less disposable income. And to your point, that could be less disposable income than they could give to a campaign, than they can donate. So knowing that, I mean, what should Democrats be doing when it comes to the midterms here? And I know we are miles and miles away from the midterms, but can they learn anything from these races?
I think you can learn from these races is just being more strategic in when you're spending your money. Look, I think in the presidential campaign, there was an outpouring of fundraising that went to Vice President Harris, but we didn't really see anything because she lost in all these swing states. And I am a huge Kamala Harris supporter. However, I think they could have been more strategic. Maybe reduce the size of swing states you go for. Maybe being strategic and doing one or two. Look at the numbers. Look at who comes out to vote. Look at your get out the vote operation. Right now, I don't think the Democrats need to spend or really fundraise. I'd work on fundraising and getting money, but I would also work on, you can do things to disrupt the Republicans without spending money. You don't need to throw it all in special elections. We just saw Cory Booker do a historic, 25 hours, or he beat the record for filibustering. There are things you can do that don't cost money. And I think the Democrats need to internally get their house in order, figure out how they're spending, the consultants they're spending their money on, and how they're going to get people to feel that they're talking about working class issues and helping the working class.
Let's talk about that, because aside from on the same day that the Florida special elections happened, Cory Booker was on the Senate floor giving that historic speech, remarks for 25 hours, over 25 hours, breaking that record, not even leaving to go to the bathroom. So what can Democrats then learn from that type of politicking?
Yeah, I think that take it back to basics. Resistance doesn't have to be expensive. Resistance can be think about the civil rights movement. Think about when, in the 60s and 70s, when people were really fighting the power. They didn't have money. It wasn't millions of dollars thrown in campaigns. It was grassroots. And what the Democrats need to realize is that there's a disconnect with the working class and people who create the movement. The movement can't be created from top to bottom. It has to be created bottom up. And I think once we realize that, and once they realize that as a party, they can figure out ways to be strategic, get grassroots and the people involved, and then let the enthusiasm bubble up. But you don't manufacture enthusiasm through paying consultants and spending money on political ads.
I think this is a really interesting conversation here, because you're really not impressed by that gap closing here. You're impressed with... Yeah.
No.
Do you think Democrats then, when they say this is historic, we are overperforming, do you think that they really believe that? They're lying, they're misguided? I mean, what do you think when they say that?
Look, I think they're happy to see Democrats overperforming in areas that they didn't perform well in November. Yes, that's great. But then you have to ask yourself, well, why are they overperforming now? Is it because it's a better candidate? Is it because, better candidates where they feel more aligned with? Do you feel maybe there's been a switch in messaging? Or maybe the president's actions are what's causing that? You have to first figure that out before you can claim victory. And if you don't know why there's a greater performance by the Democrats, you can't say it's because they just love the party and what the party's doing is right. There has to be some real deep, soul searching to figure out what's going on within the party. And I'm not impressed because all politicians we are taught as consultants, and I think politicians know, everything is historic. Everything is great. You're using terminology just to basically catch someone's eyes, but in reality, instead of losing by 30 points, you lost by 14 points. It's still a loss. I wouldn't be proud.
I mean, I had a conversation just about the Florida special elections, and I said it reminded me of my pickleball game over the weekend. The first game I lost 9-0. The second game I lost 9-3. So you can see a slight improvement, but it's not enough. It is still a blowout loss. Do you think it's bad messaging then to be celebrating a loss, but a loss by less?
It's creative messaging, because the average person is not paying attention to what's happening in Florida and Wisconsin. The average person cares about what happens at home, what happens in their local community, and how politics impacts them. I always say it's creative messaging. If my husband runs a race and he comes in third place, but there were only 3 people, it's a loss. But when you say I came in third place, it sounds like it wasn't a competitive race. So I applaud them for thinking creatively, because if I'm not paying attention to politics outside of my bubble, it looks like, wow, there is some momentum. But they've got to figure out how to get the momentum internally from the people and keep it for 2 years.
And do you think that they can keep it then from this week? You're looking at some Dem wins here with that win in Wisconsin with the Supreme Court seat, with Cory Booker breaking that record, capitalizing on that. Do you think that these wins, minor as you make them, do you think that this is a flash in the pan moment, or can you capitalize them as a Democrat to start shifting the tide?
I think you start shifting the tides. I think the moment where Democrats can shift the tides is seeing how these tariffs impact people. The economy is the number one issue for Americans right now. They don't care about anything else. So I think seeing the impacts of the tariffs, I saw that China is doing a counter tariff on us. So seeing how that impacts goods that we buy every day, that's going to be the thing that maybe changes the momentum for Democrats. But again, is how do they take advantage of it? Are they creative? Is it gimmicky stuff, or is it real stuff to be like showing people and educating how they can fight back? So it's to be determined for me. I'm not, I don't want to claim victory on anything. I think a win is a win, and you have to give the Republicans credit for winning and maintaining their majority.
My final question to you then is, how do Democrats capitalize on this tariff news here? Because I was asking a Democratic congressman, hey, do you think this is a political death sentence for Republicans, these tariffs, the way they're shaking out, the way the markets are reacting, the way Americans are responding, the way the world leaders are responding? And he said, I don't really care about the political messaging here. I care about how it's going to impact the American people. How do you think Democrats take this moment?
They should be educating people about the tariffs, understanding why groceries cost more. Why is your used automobile going to cost more? They need to educate. On Fox News right now, they're educating their population like, hey, this is a commitment. We have to it's going to be, increased prices, but there's a reason, because in the long run, we're going to get money and there's going to be a return in our investment. What are the Democrats saying to counter that messaging? I always watch both sides. I'm not seeing anything to counter it. I'm hearing the tariffs are bad. Well, what's our solution? What are we going to do as a party? How do we fight back? You're not hearing that. You're not hearing anything right now. And that's the problem with Democrats. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I still don't feel the movement is at the ground level. And until it gets there, and until everyone starts going to the local store, feeling the pain, and then saying, hey, this is, community town halls, forums, getting people involved. Right now, there's some cognitive dissonance, and people just are tuning out of politics. And that's where the Democrats need to get them back involved and engaged.
And as a voter, especially, I know voters think, how is X, Y, or Z going to impact me directly, whether it be my wallet, my livelihood, this, that, or the other. So it sounds like you want to see Democrats speak directly to a voter. This is how tariffs are going to impact you. This is going to be the cost of drinks. This is going to be the cost of food, something like that, to make it more realistic.
Yes, there's so many things going on. You hear them talk about Social Security. You hear them talk about Medicaid. These are things that impact everyday people. Everybody was told when you were born, once you're working age, you work, this money goes to the federal government, and when you retire, you're going to have that money. That's in jeopardy right now. The tariffs are causing everything to go expensive. So if everything costs more, do I have to work more? If I have less money for my kids and my family, what does that mean for me? We are at a turning point in terms of our economy. I think universal tariffs have been done 3 times in history. The 2 prior times caused recessions. This is the things that we should be talking about. We're not talking about it as a party. So my hope is that they start talking about it, they educate, and that's how you start building the momentum.
And economists have been saying, hey, these tariffs are bringing us dangerously close to a recession. I mean, in 2008, do you think it would behoove Democrats to bring up the memories of 2008, 2009? Do you think people really remember just how bad a recession is and how badly it impacts you?
I think people forget what's not in front of their nose, and you have to remind them Remember how bad it was to buy houses? Do you remember the interest rates? Do you remember the market plunging? You don't remember the stocks plunging? Like, we're seeing it on Wall Street right now. Wall Street's very volatile. We're showing signs that this economy is nervous and anxious. And I think either Trump starts realizing it and his advisors say, hey, we need to course correct. And if he doesn't course correct, Democrats need to take advantage. Will they do it? I don't know. You never know with them.
Well, Shontell, depending on how it shakes out in a few weeks, I hope you can come back on with me and discuss exactly what has happened, how Democrats have responded, what you want to see from them. Shontell Smith, thank you so much for joining me. You are welcome back anytime.